Welcome back to another Lions Daily episode, man. Today we are here to do a little preview. This is a little preview episode. Okay, so training camp feels like it's right around the corner. Actually, now it's the end of July. Lions play at the end of July. It's a few weeks away, and things are gonna pop off. And we're going into the weekend, so it's a slight break here before we get things back started again. And I thought this would be a great time to do a little. I want to call this a preview for training camp, but not completely. I thought about doing just like positional battles, and maybe next week will be the perfect time to start that. But today, I thought this would be a really good time to dive into what I'm calling Lions training camp headlines. So these are predictive headlines. What are the headlines going to be coming out of training camp when it all starts to happen? Now, as I always kind of preface with these types of videos, that there are certain positional groups I just don't think pop as much at training camp. Like, I feel like that just typically tends to happen. So, for example, one of the guys that you guys know I'm a big fan of is Sione Vaki, and a lot of it was the pass game impact. Well, one, as a runner, I just don't feel like it pops as much during training camp. You can't really stand out as much as a true runner during training camp, so that one's a little bit more difficult. But as a pass catcher, you could. So a guy like that could have a fantastic training camp in the sense of what he does in the passing attack. But I just don't think it'll shine enough to the point where that becomes like a main headline. Like, we walk away from training camp and we're like, man, that dude catching passes. Like, you get some glimpses. You might get some plays. I remember Jahmyr Gibbs had a nice, I think he ran like a wheel route or something. It was a couple years ago in training camp. He scored a touchdown on it. It was ridiculous, but it was actually on the other field. I was on the wrong field. I was in the stands, but it was on the opposite field, so it was kind of hard to see what was happening. But you knew he caught it. You knew it was acrobatic. You knew it was crazy. And you always knew that he had that ability. But I never felt like it became a headline. It was just like, yo, Jahmyr Gibbs did this, and I believe that he could be a good pass-catching running back. So ultimately, it was a cool play to see, but it wasn't enough to call that a headline of training camp. But some guys could have dominant training camp performances. Maybe there's certain drills where you're like, this guy's going to stand out and really make a name for himself because of what he does in this certain category. And I think that's what today's focus is going to be about. Maybe it's a specific battle that we're like, this thing is going to take off. But I want to save some of those for when we go to specific positional groups, because I think that's the plan going forward. We'll see if we decide to do that, but I think that's going to be something that we at least mix in as we move forward. So without wasting any more time, let's get right into this. Let's talk about these battles. All right, so the first one we're going to get to, or not the battles, I'm sorry, these headlines. I just said battles, so that threw me off. These headlines. The first one that we have, we're going to go to the defensive line, because this will be the first time we get the pads. Well, we're going to get real contact when we get to training camp, so it's going to shake things up. Also, we have joint practices, which is going to add to this as well, an opportunity to see these guys against other teams. A couple of those, that's going to add to this as well. But I want to start with, hey, we're getting real contact here. The defensive line, the offensive line, we're going to get some real takeaways from these guys. What does it look like? Who's standing out? And I think the first player that I have to throw into this mix is going to be Levi Onwuzurike. And I'm going to title this first headline as Levi Onwuzurike is a nightmare for the interior offensive lineman. That's what I'm going to say, because he's going to be, of course, getting top team reps. I would think from jump he's going to be with the first team. You know, we might get guys mixing in like Tyleek, so he takes some snaps here and there, and then he goes to second team. But for the most part, he's going to get some early first team reps for this defensive line will be the expectation. I assume that will carry throughout. He's on a 1-year deal with the Lions, looking to get that big payday. I know I've made it clear before that I believe that Levi is going to ultimately get that big payday with the Lions. So he's, or not with the Lions, but somewhere he's going to make a ton of money. All right, Levi's going to get the bag. All right, somewhere that's going to happen. And this is going to be the year that sets him up to do that. I've compared it to Milton Williams making that big contract. Whether that's with us or elsewhere, it'll land us a big-time comp pick. It's going to be valuable. Or just the sense that he plays really well. That's going to be valuable. We're going to need that to be the case. Inside-outside flexibility. Levi finished on such a high note this past season, putting together a dominant performance against Minnesota when we needed him to. He had 9 pressures in that game alone. Levi, to end this past season, went like this. He had 17 pressures in his final 4 games. 17 pressures in the final 4 games he played this past year, and 9 stops combined in those final 4 games. Okay, he was dominant to end this past season while also showing some of the inside-outside flexibility. On top of being dominant within those 4 games to end this past season, think about what the matchup is going to look like for Levi in this year's training camp. What he's going to be going against. Our top team. You're going to have a second-year player in Christian Mahogany that's going to play more than 100 snaps this year. You're going to have that. You're also going to have Miles Frazier, a rookie draft pick that gets mixed in, I would assume, a pretty good amount. You're going to have Graham Glasgow, who is typically up and down already in pass protection, so he's going to be on the interior. And Tate Ratledge, a rookie offensive lineman. That's going to be the primary competition for him. Now, I know that may sound concerning for like, oh, my goodness, okay, is that concerning for the season? to me, not really. It's not that concerning. I'm actually pretty optimistic about what that's going to look like. But ultimately, when you think about one-on-one opportunities, when you think about just this interior offensive line that's so young, going against a guy now that's going into year 4, again, he's looking I should do year 4. He's going into year 5, actually. He's off his rookie deal. Going into year 5, he's looking for that big payday. And that's the competition he's going against. That's not to say that those guys are not good. I like a lot of those players. But it's more so that they're just so new to this. Like, this is going to be the first time they're getting this exposure. And they're getting the guy that's been there. He's coming off his season where he played about 700 snaps versus in the past where he's playing 100, 300 snaps. He played a ton this past year. He actually had more pressures this past season than Milton Williams as a whole. He had 47 on the entire year. If you throw in Milton Williams playoffs, it kind of throws things off. But if you just throw in regular season, he had 45. I would assume Levi Onwuzurike is going to be a nightmare for these interior offensive linemen, and it's going to be just the beginning of him on his path to going to get that big payday. That's my prediction. The first prediction that we have as a headline for training camp is we're going to walk away like, yeah, Levi's a problem. I remember last year it was kind of like an early headline of like, hey, this playing defensive end. This year it's going to be he's dominant. That's my assumption. That's my prediction early on. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I see y'all in here, man. We rolling today, man. We're rolling today. We got a lot of headlines. I know I titled this as I think 5, but we have a couple of extras that I do want to touch on a little bit. So we have a lot of headlines to get to. Let's go to the second headline that we have. And the next one is going to be a young player. And I'm actually very excited about this one because one thing that I'm just asking is, did he put on a little bit of weight? Did he bulk up a little bit? Does he look more like your typical linebacker? I want to see what that's going to turn into. However, regardless of if that's the case or not, a guy that we just didn't get to see enough of. And there's another player that you could argue that you could consider here. Will he be a headline? I don't know. He has an opportunity. A guy like Nate Lynn, who's really good against the Giants. But I'm going to go a little bit off the wall with this one a little bit, okay? This is going to be taking a swing, okay? In the dark, eyes closed, I'm taking a swing. Let me just see if I can hit something. And I'm going to go with Derrion Gilbert. I'm going to say Derrion Gilbert surprises in training camp. That's going to be my second headline for training camp this year. And again, it's opportunity driven, right? The opportunity that Derrion Gilbert is going to have without Malcolm Rodriguez there to begin things against guys like Ezekiel Turner, the competition that he's rolling up against. But what he showcased last season could be so valuable. In those 40 snaps, what he showcased could be valuable. And it was mainly what he showcased in coverage. I think he also showed some juice, what he could do as a run, as a pass rusher as well. But what he showcased in coverage, the man coverage upside, the burst, the closing burst in space, you could put him out there in a flat, he could take somebody away, he can run guys down. Look at him here as kind of the rat backer where you're seeing some lateral movement, you're seeing him read the quarterback's eyes, go one route to the next route, and then he closes on the quarterback, Tommy DeVito, when he takes off, shuts it down, doesn't get a first down. That was the kind of thing where I saw that one play got me excited about Derrion Gilbert. It's like, wait a minute, we got to talk about this guy because I remember that he was a buzz name in last year's training camp. I don't know if they ever became a official headline, but I remember last year's training camp, man, he got a lot of buzz because he was playing really well. I don't remember that he ever took over the spotlight, but I don't remember it incredibly well because it was last year's training camp. We don't have clips from last year's training camp, really. However, I do remember liking him in last year's training camp, and then I remember seeing this first game and these 40 snaps that he played in. Now, the issues were very clear, and this is a great example of it, right? He's a smaller backer. This guy is 215 pounds. He was small coming out of Northern Illinois. He was kind of a safety playing linebacker, so you're like, I don't know how this is going to work. And I do wonder if he's put on a little bit of weight as he's filled into being like, okay, that looks like a linebacker. Physically, now he looks more like what I would expect a linebacker in the NFL to look like versus what it looked like last year. He just looked outmatched. He just looked outmatched climbing when linebackers would climb to him at the second level, showing any kind of jolt on contact, a consistent ability to shed guys, not being pushed backwards. But the vision I thought was there. Reading keys I thought was hit and miss, but the vision was there. He could kind of sort and sift through traffic pretty well. And the coverage upside, the special teams ability, of course, is going to shine. And when your competition is guys like the Ezekiel Turners, there's no Malcolm Rodriguez to take that role. Is Alex going to be there at camp? I don't know. Somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to do some work. And to me, the guy with the opportunity to do that is Derrion Gilbert. Remember last year, it was Lawrence Strickland. And trust me, I put Lawrence Strickland's name on this. But Lawrence Strickland was the guy that I think popped in training camp, ended up making the 53-man roster, played really well in the preseason, showed a lot of flexibility. I think Derrion Gilbert has the opportunity to maybe be that guy for us this upcoming year. I don't think we're going to add another linebacker. Maybe if someone becomes available that was unexpected potentially, like it was a really good cut candidate and someone Lions were just interested in, but it wasn't necessarily attached to, hey, because Alex is not participating, we just added this guy. And I do think he's going to participate, by the way. I have no intel on that, but I think he's going to participate in training camp. But I think it would be maybe if there was just a guy that they had their eyes on, that they liked, and he became available, so they just said, let's bring him in, let's see what it looks like. But ultimately, I think the Zach Cunningham move was that move. I think adding Zach Cunningham when they did was the move in preparation for, let's have a guy in here. And I think that Zach Cunningham was the best available, arguably, when they signed him on the market for that position that was just sitting there as a free agent. Same thing with Tristan Colon when Frank Ragnow retired. I think those were the two moves that were in unison with figuring out, like, oh, okay, Alex Anzalone's not really showing up right now. And then also on top of that, Frank Ragnow just retired. I think those were the two moves on top of that. It would, at that point, I think, simply be just a couple of guys that they liked becoming available rather than actually connecting a player to, hey, this is someone that we need because this player is not showing up, that kind of thing. But I think he will show up. I think ultimately, I'm pretty optimistic Alex is going to show up. I like to see they get figured out, but I think he will. Okay, I'm going to mix it up now. We're going to get back to showing some clips, but I want to change it up now. I want to go to a rookie here. And this is a player that I've made it known in my breakdown video. I don't know that he's going to come in and take snaps right away. I don't know that that's going to be the case. But I can't help that I was a huge fan of this player. Maybe my favorite player to watch so far. I mean, I'm working through Tyleek right now, but I think this might still hold kind of that. Maybe it would be the other receiver. But the guy that we're going to talk about right now is a player that I can't help, and I get this vibe. I get this sense that he's going to have an opportunity to do this. I still don't know that this necessarily equates to him taking a ton of snaps early or him kind of like uplifting Tim Patrick in the snaps that he gets, because there could be some familiarity there that just kind of rolls true. And plus, Tim Patrick played well last year. But I think when you talk about having 4 preseason games, a training camp where you have one-on-one opportunities, and just a guy that can connect with the backups, right? When you think about the Lions or backup quarterback situation, it's been who in the world, like we're just, it's been messy until Hendon Hooker started to add stability last year, and it became fun, and it was exciting, and he was winning games for us in the preseason. Like, he had an extra juice to it. But who is that guy that can get to the hip of that quarterback where you're just like, that's going to be his number one, right? Essentially, the number one of Hendon Hooker is this guy, and this is the area where he's going to excel. He's going to beat up the backup cornerbacks, and that's going to be the way that he steps into the starting role and becomes a key contributor as a starter eventually. And to me, of course, I think we all know where we're going with this one. Isaac TeSlaa. And I have a couple of things that I want to flash on the screen here, and because I'm going to actually go with a direct comparison. It's not just a player, but I want to go with direct comparison. Not to say that they played the game the exact same way, but in terms of them excelling very early on, and you early on getting the sense of, this guy's different. I remember Brian Branch, the first time we saw Brian Branch, and it was like, this guy's different. Seeing Brian Branch in training camp, you could tell right away. It was a whole thing. It was like, I don't know how we're going to make this work. And then the more you watched, you're like, you know what? Tracy Walker might be on the bench. Like, it's just, this guy is different. He's going to have to be on the field. You can't not put this guy on the field after what you're seeing. And a couple of headlines I went out and grabbed were old headlines that we saw when this guy was a Detroit Lion as a rookie back in 2017. And I wish this would have worked out a little bit more. But that's Kenny Golladay. And here were a couple of headlines. So we're talking about headlines today. Here were a couple of the headlines that I was able to grab back from 2017 and just different moments in times. The first preseason game from Kenny Golladay, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Colts. Awesome. 4 receptions on, I think it was 7 targets. He had a ridiculous, like, one-handed kind of scoop touchdown from Stafford in that game against the Colts on their first touchdown. And then you go to the training camp, and you got the same things there. For example, here to get things started, training camp observations. Golladay impresses. Ebron leaves early. Day 1 of training camp is in the books. And the first guy was, hey, Kenny Galladay's pretty awesome. Remember Kenny Golladay, round 3 pick, Northern Illinois, small school. Now, this is not a small school from Arkansas, but same round. Big receiver, physically imposing. That was the first headline. Then 13 days later in training camp, are we talking about? Kenny Golladay joins the first team offense. I just get the sense that if there's a guy that's really has a very good shot of making this look very similar and giving you flashbacks to, like, man, I remember when a guy took over like that, and that guy was Kenny Golladay. I think Isaac TeSlaa could do that, but especially when we're talking about training camp, because even though I'm kind of comparing this and I'm throwing in some preseason stuff and I'm talking about being into the first team offense, I more so am really making this towards the focus of training camp. The guy that's going to get at the hip of Hendon Hooker, find a really strong connection. Maybe that's Kyle Allen. Find a really strong connection, be dominant, win some one-on-ones, but I think where he's going to excel is as soon as he gets in game-like situations. Right, he may be up and down in one-on-ones. I think that's going to be very clear. But his route tree may not be incredibly deep to get things started, and it may take him a while to get rolling within regular season games. But I think when you get him in game-like situations and you get a Hendon Hooker next to him, and you're talking about 11-11 on scrimmages, when you're putting him in preseason games and the play breaks down, he's just looking for someone to get open, and it's going to be Isaac TeSlaa because he breaks open so late on plays so well. He does a great job in the scramble drill, right? He just has an ability to get himself open, find space, his hands in contest situations, his body control on the sideline, the reliability as a pass catcher. Like, he doesn't drop passes. It's so consistent. He's got the body control to save passes all over the place. To me, Isaac TeSlaa has it within him to be a guy that immediately starts making headlines. It's like, hold up. How long are we to keep this guy off the field? Because this is crazy. This guy is dominant. Whenever the ball goes his way, as Dan Campbell likes to say, he's a gamer. That's going to be Isaac TeSlaa. So I just love that comparison. Not to be like, he is Kenny Golladay. He plays just like him. But Golladay had that same vibe to him. He dominated in the preseason. You got him out there. And the first game you see him is against Arizona. The first game against Arizona. Man, I remember that game so well. And you just had that sense like Galladay's going to be a problem. In the first game against Arizona, he goes for 4 receptions, 69 yards, and the Lions beat the Arizona Cardinals, and he was awesome. So that's going to be my next headline there. Shout out to a rookie. I have another rookie that we may talk about today. We'll see where we get at time-wise with this one. But let's continue. Let's continue with these headlines. Let me get my my clips back on the screen. I think I dropped one off here for some reason. I don't know why I just lost one, but let me see if I can get that back. Okay, here it is. Next up, we're going to go to a new edition here to keep this thing rolling here. And the new edition that we're going to go to is defensive back signing the Lions made this offseason. Again, I think a very common theme has been opportunity. A lot of these players that we're considering headline players are guys with an opportunity to become a headline player, right? To make a headline, a guy that constantly comes up and talks. And to me, the next one that I want to go to, and especially because, he's had some up and down injury luck, which is unfortunate, but the hope is that especially through the training camp, he's going to be on the field and he's going to be able to make a name for himself. And for me, a guy with a perfect opportunity to jump himself into a role that the Lions have valued, a third safety role, a guy that can play in the slot, as Dan Campbell has talked about, but I view him more as a safety, and I think this transition is going to be fantastic for him. It's Avonte Maddox. We're going to go to Avonte Maddox next, and I'm pumped to see what Avonte Maddox looks like on this team. He's another guy that just feels like a Lion. You get the sense when you're watching, like, yeah, I can understand why this guy has now been signed. It's actually going to be fun. He's a guy that, to me, like, if I'm at training camp and they do the autographs and stuff at the end, I know that it's difficult to get those, especially now. Like 3 or 4 years ago, not that difficult. You didn't have to get tickets 3 or 4 years ago. Now you got to have tickets. Now that thing is packed. It is impossible to get an autograph. I mean, this thing it's not. Like, you got to be dedicated. Like, I want that signature. If you're not dedicated, you're not getting it, okay? But a guy that potentially I could get an autograph from this year that I would be fired up about would be Avonte Maddox. The idea that he is now a Lion. Avonte Maddox opportunity that he's going to have in training camp. Team drills, preseason, I think joint practices, and we want to count this as training camp because like they're at the hip. It's not a preseason game. A joint practice, I'm going to count as preseason. He's the kind of guy that I want to see, and I think that he'll make headlines when you get to joint practice because he's going to be feisty. He's going to step down and absolutely level dudes. He's going to hit guys. I think he's going to look so comfy in that safety role. It's a wide open opportunity. It's a wide open opportunity with Amik Robertson working in the slot. It's a wide open opportunity to work into the next state. Who's that next guy that you trust? Avonte Maddox has that. But then you can step him down and he can play in coverage pretty silky smooth, and I think it's going to translate better as a full-time safety. But he still has that ability. He's built to play near the line of scrimmage. There's some moments of like, all right, maybe over pursuit here. Let's stay a little bit more controlled as a mover. Let's stay a little bit more controlled in space. But you just love it. The plant and drive, the change of direction, the amount of ground that he covers, the level 2 routes, the amount of space that he can clog up in zone coverage. He can play underneath. He brings some real pass rush juice. You put him in a single high safety look, and he's flying around. He's changed direction, the transition ability. All that pops. To me, Avonte Maddox has that opportunity to shine everywhere. That's the headline. Avonte Maddox shines everywhere on defense because he can play everywhere for us, and I think that it'll be at that safety role. Maybe that grabs a headline on its own, that he's playing safety and he's looked at as a slot. Like, this is going to bring so much consistency out of him. Let me give you a stat line from Avonte Maddox this past season because he's been up and down with injuries, so I hope that he stays healthy. 15 receptions on 28 targets this past season, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 78.5 passer rating allowed. That was his stat line in coverage this past season. Playing safety and slot, being on and off the field. Some games he's playing 10, some he's not playing. Other games he's playing 50 snaps. That was his past defensive stats allowed this last year. That is a guy that puts himself in headlines, and I think that it will be there to last, and he's going to have a perfect opportunity to do that. I want to go to a little battle now. All right, let's go to a little battle. Let's make things interesting. The offensive line. Now, I think most people know where I stand on most of these offensive linemen, right? Like, I'm a huge Miles Frazier guy. I do think that this was the biggest steal we could say of the draft because of the value. I think that ultimately at some point he may become the starter this year. It's possible that he does that in training camp. It's possible that he starts to kind of crack his way into that role because he may go out there in these one-on-one drills and just look ahead of everybody else. He's an older guard prospect just like Christian Mahogany was, and you could very early look at him and be like, this thing works. That said, though, when we're talking about this, I want to go to an interesting battle, okay? I want to go to something that's just like, what are we talking about here? I don't know what we're doing, but we're going to do it anyway just because. Mason Miller / Colby Sorstel. What are we doing here? I don't know what we're doing here, to be honest with you, but we're going to do it because it's fun, okay? This could be a kind of emerging battle, right? All I hear is, man, Colby Sorstel, this guy's going to get cut. It's not going to work. That's all I hear, right? It's all the negative talk. It's all the downside. This guy's cut. He's on the out. It's him and Broderick Martin, okay? If anybody does a who could be on the cut, who could be a surprise cut this year, I guarantee you 1 and 2 in some order is going to be Colby Sorstel and it's going to be Broderick Martin, okay? But who's the guy that can push Colby Sorstel skill set wise? Right, Colby's tried to move to guard, and last year he goes back to right tackle, and he settles in at tackle, and he plays against Pittsburgh in the final game, and it's rough. I mean, he's playing out there against some high-end players, and he is getting torched in the sense that it just doesn't look like he has the range to sit on the outside. Well, that said, a guy that I think has the opportunity skill set wise to push him, very similarly speaking, to me, the guy that has the perfect opportunity to push him forward is going to be an undrafted free agent signing out of North Dakota State. That's what we're doing. We're going Mason Miller, who played right tackle as well. That, to me, the body control was messy as heck this past year, but he showed a real ability to anchor. You saw the ability to get up to the next level, climb to the second level comfortably. You saw some athletic skills that were there. There was some reactive movement skills, but as a run blocker, it was the strain. It was the toughness. It was the sustainability. It was the latch that he would showcase. You see his resetting hands very quickly to showcase an anchor. He looks a little bit flimsy in the lower body. You're like, maybe he's got to put on a little bit of weight, right? Maybe he's not going to last. This guy gives up a soft edge too often, but as a run blocker, man, he is tough. He's gritty. He's tough. He can move. And then you look at Colby Sorstel, and we think a lot of the similar things, right? He plays with some leverage as a blocker. We think about the skill set that he has to have the range to move around the different spots, but we want to see better body control. The same issues that I feel like we have with both these guys like this, getting out past the skis, not showing the range, is the same things I see with Mason Miller. So to think that those two guys are going to have the opportunity in training camp to just go at it, right? That's a guy that I think is going to push Colby Sorstel. It's like, hey, yeah, it is make or break on your own, but who's going to push you into that next spot? It's Mason Miller. And who's the guy that could also surprise us? A name that we walk away from training camp and we're like, man, who is that undrafted free agent that could make the 53-man roster? Because every year, we don't get one every year, but it feels like, there's been multiple years where we've had a first round, or we've had an undrafted free agent actually did make the team. Now, year one, it was like, okay, we're just in a spot where multiple guys are going to make this team. But last year was Lawrence Strickland. This year it could be Mason Miller. It's possible. Now, I do like the tackle depth, but I also want to see Mason Miller show some flexibility. I want to see if he can go to guard. I want to see if that works for him. I want to see if that keeps him under his toes a little bit better, right? If it keeps his weight not shifting as often. I want to see if that works for him, putting him at the guard spot. So I want to see that flexibility arise this next year. He's a little bit on the lighter side, just over 300 pounds. He's a taller lineman. The length doesn't seem outstanding, but I just see so many similarities between the way that these two guys play. And I remember Mason Miller, out of all these UDFAs, was one of the guys. He and Keith Cooper caught my eye immediately, and then Keith Cooper got signed as an undrafted free agent. I think Mason Miller has a great opportunity right now with the Lions to battle with a guy like Colby Sorstel, who everybody is counting out. But you know what? You know what gives you a shot? And you can't give up on guys, man. I'm not going to give up on guys because I know these dudes are top-end athletes. But something that will push you into surprising everybody, like, oh, he stuck around, is competition. And I think a guy with a lot of competition that plays very similar. Just wait till Mason Miller gets some buzz. Wait till we get 4 days into practice and it's like, Mason Miller's looking pretty good. This UDFA might make the team. Like, are we sleeping on Mason Miller's flexibility? Think about the fire that's just going to fuel for Colby Sorstel, and I hope that's the case. I hope it is, man. I hope it is. Anyways, that's my next headline. Mason Miller versus Colby Sorstel. The unexpected battle that for some reason we're talking about, but we are, and it's a lot of fun. All right, those two. Now, I think we have a couple more on here that we have to get to. My bad. I didn't mean to click that again. But we got a couple more potential headlines that we do need to talk about here. And I'm just going to go through my list and pick one. Where do we want to go next? I think we got to go with an individual player next, and I do want to go back to the rookie world for a second here, because I just give some love to Isaac TeSlaa, saying that there could be a similar path to a guy like Kenny Galladay. But if we're talking about individual drills where you can dominate, okay, individual drills where you can be a problem, let's go to the other receiver that we drafted, Dominic Lovett. Yeah, we're going to go that way. Okay, we're going to go Dominic Lovett. And I understand I talked about Dan Jackson. He's got a great opportunity too. I think he'll make the team because of comfortability defensively. But you're talking about training camp specifically, right? We're not talking about in-game. That's actually the spot I have more concerns. I'm like, okay, I hope this works. I hope he shows a pretty deep route tree and they're comfortable with him and that he's getting to his landmarks and that he's catching the ball consistently. I hope he builds that connection with the quarterback where they trust throwing him the football and that maybe he shows some inside-outside. Like, I'm hoping. But where I'm pretty darn sure that he's going to be a problem. And I'm willing to bet on the fact. I'm willing to bet any candy bar you want. You know, walk to me with Walmart. I'm willing to bet that candy bar that you want, that this guy's going to be an absolute menace in one-on-ones. It's Dominic Lovett. I think he's going to give so many guys problems in one-on-ones. I think you can throw starters on him, and he's going to get – I think you put him up against Amik, he's going to give him problems. I think you put him against Rakestraw, he's going to give him problems. He's going to give dudes problems this year, and that's Lovett in that drill specifically, because that's the one that everybody watches. What is the one drill that grabs everybody's attention at training camp? I can promise you it's not special teams drills. I can promise you that. I want to talk about it, but it's not. It won't be that, all right? Outside of us getting the little list of like, hey, Jake Bates was 5 of 6 today, and he made a 52-yarder. Oh, snap. What are we talking? Outside of that, nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about, oh, look at the positioning. Did you see the positioning? You know, the gunner kind of did one of these. Nobody's going to be talking about that. But what they will talk about is the one-on-ones where everybody's like, oh, snap. Put that phone away. You can't record this. That's me, by the way. Everybody's going to put their attention on these one-on-ones, wide receiver, DB, and who's going to be cooking the other guy. It always grabs the attention. Lovett will give dudes problems. If you watched him at Georgia, there was not a game. There was not a single game that I walked away from Dominic Lovett and said, he wasn't cooking dudes. Like, this guy was incredible at just getting open. He was so hard to stick with. He's so shifty. He's got so much juice to his game as a route runner. It's a problem. And I think you're going to see that show up immediately in training camp as soon as he gets those one-on-ones. Now, will he always catch the ball? I hope so, because that'll get him on the field. Right? That'll get him in the field. And I think special teams is going to be the area where he actually thrives, which is why I made that little joke, because I think special teams will actually keep him around. I think special teams will be where he adds the most value year one. I don't know how much we're going to see him on offense as long as we're healthy. I don't know how much we're actually going to see him. But special teams will be the spot that I think he settles in. We're like, okay, this works, and eventually we'll see him on the field more. But in training camp, this is going to be a headline. Book it. I feel very confident he's going to be a problem. Dominic Lovett. Okay. There was a couple of others that I considered here. There was a couple of other headlines that I considered, but I just didn't think they brought enough juice for me to actually include them. But I do want to give them a slight little spotlight before we wrap this in chat. I see y'all in there. I'm going to give y'all some love. Give me a second, though. I want to just give you a couple more nuggets. The first one, Lauren Strickland, right? Lauren Strickland solidifies himself. That's not really a headline, but I think it's very possible. The Lions at Dan Jackson, I think, is going to make the team. I think he's going to make the team. I'm not really worried about that. But I think Lauren Strickland has an opportunity, especially if Avonte starts to trickle more into the slot role than I expect. He's got an opportunity to really solidify himself this year. Because last year he already showed us that he could play in the box. You could put him on a slot receiver, and he was actually pretty darn good. You could put him at safety, and he was pretty comfy. Run defense, coverage, he brought both of those things to the table. This year, the competition is Mo Norris. I think Strickland clearly showed a lot more flexibility this year. I think Strickland has an opportunity this season to cement himself as like, okay, throw it out the window. We understand. He's making the team again. This actually might end up being a very, I don't want to call him a core piece. I don't know if that's the right word to describe it, but this is a guy that sticks around for a while. I think Strickland has an opportunity to do that. The next guy I'm going to say is Tyleik Williams. This one to me is more so expected than anything. But I'm just going to throw it out there. But I don't know his 40 time top of my head. I don't know if we actually had a 40 time for him. Maybe a pro day number. Tyleik Williams becoming a starter. Now, I don't think this is something that's really a headline because I think he's going to have to play a lot this year, especially early. But him getting starting reps, I think, is going to happen sooner than later. That's not to say that he's going to like, Levi, now you're not playing anymore. It's just going to be because of where we're at situationally. And I think training camp will stuff the run a few times. He may give you a little bit of juice as a rusher. He'll do some good stunt work. I think ultimately you're going to see him sooner rather than later getting a lot of starting reps, first-team reps, and that'll just be a headline on its own because as a rookie in his first-team reps, he'll get that buzz very quickly. And I want to throw one more, and I've kind of mentioned it earlier. It's Miles Frazier. To me, Miles Frazier has the opportunity. I'm not as much so wanting to bet on this one, but I do like Miles Frazier a lot. There is an opportunity. There is a world to me where Miles Frazier is a starter week 1. I don't think it's off the table. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's on the table that Miles Frazier stands out because of his experience, his comfortability very quickly as a run blocker, the way that he approaches the game. He could surprise very quickly and get himself out there a lot faster than I expect. But training camp is the best spot to do that, as well as preseason is the best spot to do that because we can see it. Once that kind of goes away, I think it's hard to work into a rotation, but it's possible. It's hard, though, as the season's rolling along. I think we'll see him midway, second half, second, third of the season where it's like, okay, he might just become the starter. But it's on the table that he becomes a starter by week 1. And I just thought I would throw that little nugget out there that it's possible. So with that being said, those are your headlines that I am focused on for training camp over here on BR, man. Appreciate y'all joining for another Lions Daily episode. I'll see y'all same time Monday. We'll be back with another show. If you want to catch it live and I'm not live, go to Bleacher Report, 4 p.m. Eastern time because I'm probably live over there. So shout out to y'all for tuning in, man. I will see y'all then with another episode of something. Maybe it's camp battles. Maybe it's a breakdown. I don't know. We'll find out. I'm out. Have a great 4th of July and have a great weekend. YouTube, I see y'all, man. I had to get that show in real quick. I just want to give some quick love before we get out of here, man. I appreciate y'all joining in. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Martin and Sorsto are gone. See, that's going to be the conversation. That's why that headline was real sneaky. You know what I mean? Because maybe Mason Miller takes a little bit of that spotlight. I didn't want to throw Broderick Martin in here necessarily, but I would remind, go check Broderick Martin out. He did have a strong preseason this past year. I forgot he had that sack in week 1 against the Giants, which was like, oh my goodness, Broderick Martin. We'll see how that shakes out. I know that he's TK85. Maybe this is a headline. Is it a headline? If Tom Kennedy gets cut, is that really a headline? I don't think he's making the team. I don't really see a great path to him making the team personally, not this year. So I would assume he gets cut, but he'll be back on the practice squad. Honestly, more of the news would be if somebody else keeps him from our practice squad. No, you know what? We're taking him this year. You can't have him. He's playing for us. That might be more of a headline than anything. News broke that Tristan Colon might get cut or waived by the Lions, depending on how my eyes take. Yeah, see, to me, I wouldn't think that those two would have anything to do with it because neither of those guys are going to get cut. There's not a world in which Miles Frazier gets cut. There's not a world in which Tate Ratledge gets cut at all. Is there a world in which Miles is a backup? Yeah. It's more likely that he's a backup than a starter coming in. So to me, those two, and that sounds like a Facebook thing. I just got to be honest. To me, those two things don't impact this at all. Because to me, Tristan Colon was signed right when Frank Ragnow got released, right? This is a depth move. Tristan Colon, I think his ability to make this team is going to be more so reliant on what does he look like versus Kingsley Eguakun, who's only playing center. Can he show some flexibility? What does he look like versus Michael Neese, who played center and guard? Because Colon has played all interior spots. He's actually played them pretty well. What does he look like versus a guy like Neese that made the team this past season? KO'd. I think that's more of the bubble that he falls into. I personally don't believe that those two impact anything. Because let's say those two look amazing, and it's you know what? Start them both. That doesn't cut Tristan Colon because that's not really the competition for him, right? Because I know there's no world in which those two are getting cut anyway, so I wouldn't think that those two would really have much bearing on him making the team. The only bearing there would be keeping Tristan Colon out of the starting unit. He actually may have a world that he could surprise people and actually become a starter. I think that's actually a possibility because he's been good before. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would think it's more of that. That's my take, though. I could be wrong, but that would be my take, just because of when he was added. I don't know if we found the 40 time in here. Williams clocked at 5.1 at the NFL Combine. Okay, there you go. Hey, and now if that was Dominic Lovett, that would be a problem. Still trying to drop that guest host idea to you on Discord. I got to get back on Discord. I did see the updates. I haven't checked them out yet, but I will check those out. I have a lot of things I have to go through on Discord, but I will check those out. I did see that I got the update, though, so I appreciate you sending me that name. I didn't see what it was yet, but I appreciate it. I'll check it out. I'll check it out today. I just got to get logged back in. Okay, where are we at? Did I miss anything else here? Are we good here? I think we're good. All right, y'all, look, man. Enjoy your 4th of July. I will see y'all again soon with an episode again. We're working Dose of Draft, so definitely go subscribe if you haven't. If you're watching here, wherever you're watching on, go subscribe to Dose of Draft. I think it's going to happen sooner than later that we're going to start getting draft videos out. I was watching some more players this morning to kind of get caught up, but that's happening soon. Either way, I'm going to leave it there, though. I'll see y'all soon. Great 4th of July. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. I'm out. And Bro Schmo, I saw you in the chat. I don't know if you're still here. Absolutely. We're going to make that happen. We're going to make that happen. I'm out of here, though.